Alright everyone, welcome to Friday morning's video as we get set for Celtic's big return to league action against Dundee United this weekend. It's our final regular video of the weekend. That's why I'm delighted. It's been a busy old week filled with Rangers moaning and Celtic gloating, just how we like it. The VAR audio was released yesterday.
It's just outside the penalty area, not much more than it than that. Yep. You can see it's just outside there. It's really close, but
yeah,
it's more outside than it goes there.
And our rivals have taken that about as well as you would expect, about as well as Stevie does when you ask him to go and buy a round. Yeah, poor Stevie. It doesn't really matter though how Rangers take it because the League Cup is ours, and I don't think it's been taken off us. Let me just double check. Scottish League Cup winners 2024. Yep, still there. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a wind-up mood today. I'm going to try and calm things down a little bit and discuss the important stuff, because we are going to discuss a few things that happened yesterday, a few things that have been said, and of course look ahead to Sunday's game against Dundee United. Really looking forward to that game. Always loved Tannadice. It would probably, and I've said this a few times, if I wasn't a Celtic fan, and clearly I am and will be for the rest of my life, and I don't support any other teams. I know some people have English teams and American teams and all that stuff. I don't know if American teams, if that's true, but I don't have another team. If Celtic weren't a thing and all our lives were worse off, I do think I would quite like Dundee United. I've been to Tannadice a few times and I really like it as a ground. I think the Dundee United support are generally quite decent. Apart from one guy when I was in the home end during the day we won the league a couple of years ago in Ange's first season, guy who pulled me out and told me to start celebrating United goals, and obviously realised I was a Celtic fan. Apart from that guy, I quite like Dundee United. We did beat them 9-0 the next time, so I guess I got the last laugh there. Anyway, looking forward to that game. We had press conference yesterday. Celtic have split up the press conferences this week. They usually have the manager and the player on the same day. For whatever reason, we had Anthony Ralston speaking to the media yesterday. Brendan Rodgers will field questions later today, and probably on a lot of the same topics as Anthony Ralston had yesterday. He had questions like, has the meltdown from across the city taken anything away from your cup triumph? No, if anything, it's added to it, I guess. And it was also asked, have you been talking about these decisions or that decision in the dressing room? I mean, really? Do the media really think that Celtic come in and the first thing they do when they sit down is go, what about Blue Nose's 72 and follow, bringing up the document of the last 10 years nonsense that's gone against Rangers? Would you make of that, Cameron? Would you make of that, Rail? Doesn't happen. Celtic don't really care, I can guarantee you that. Anthony Ralston comes across really well. I like him. I thought he was great when he came on in the final on Sunday for Alistair Johnson. I thought he did really well, and generally I like him as a guy. Comes across as a nice guy. Doesn't give much away though in the media. Like, he really doesn't. It's kind of media trained answers that he provides. He really doesn't offer too much insight, and he was asked about a few different things yesterday. He was asked about Kieran Tierney, and straight away, as you would expect, he was keen to point out, look, I haven't heard anything about this. I've not heard that Kieran Tierney is going to be signing for Celtic. But he then did go on to talk up his Scotland teammate and former Celtic Academy teammate as well. It's the first I've heard about it, Ralston said. I can't really say much on it, but he is obviously a top player. I know him well from his time here before and from being involved in Scotland camps with him. Regardless of what his own situation is, I am sure it will work out for him because he is a very good footballer. He also said that Tierney's a year older than him. And I don't know why, but I just had a feeling Tierney was a good few years older than Ralston. Probably to do with when he made his proper breakthrough into the first team. I think Tierney was like 2014 potentially when he started getting regular game time. And I know Ralston played in that game against Paris Saint-Germain in 2017. But it took him like a good few years after that probably to become a Celtic regular. So I just had this vision of Ralston as a young guy, Tierney as an old guy or older guy. But Tierney's 27, Ralston's 26, only a year between them. And on his comments, I have absolutely no doubt that Kieran Tierney returning would be a massive boost to the Celtic dressing room. I covered this extensively yesterday. Nothing's changed over the past 24 hours, so I'm not going to go and spend ages talking about Kieran Tierney again. One point that I'm not sure if I really made yesterday, and it's probably a pretty obvious one, but obviously a lot of chat happening about Kieran Tierney. There's one camp who think this is too good an opportunity to turn down. He was a great player for us, available potentially on a free. Maybe it could just work. Maybe we can manage him, have him next to someone who's playing more regularly, manages game time like we didn't do previously. And I'm kind of in that camp, to be honest. There's also the other side who just think, one, you shouldn't ever really go back. I guess Brendan Rodgers as a manager's maybe disproving that a little bit. But also with Kieran Tierney, that his injury troubles are just so severe that it's kind of unlikely that he's a success at Celtic. And I think there's like merit in both camps. The point I would make is I think everything we're discussing here and on forums and on social media, whatever, or in person, all those things are going to be getting discussed by inside Celtic, by Brendan Rodgers, by the board, the medical team, possibly Kieran Tierney himself. I think all of these conversations will be happening. So for me, and it's probably a little bit of a cop-out. Well, it is and it isn't, because I've kind of nailed my colours to the mast and said that I want Celtic to sign Kieran Tierney. I think it could still work if he's managed, etc. But I think the cop-out would be to say that you trust Brendan Rodgers and those inside Celtic to make the proper decision here, taking everything into account. And Brendan Rodgers will know Kieran Tierney, and the medical team will know Kieran Tierney better than any of us. So as fans, I think we can think about it emotionally, let our heart rule our head, and I don't think there's any harm in doing that as fans. I guess those in power inside the club have to think about things differently. But as I say, no major development there, and we'll see how things rumble on. And yeah, I'll be honest, after a really busy week of talking points with the Tierney stuff and other transfer things, and obviously just the aftermath of Sunday's final, there wasn't actually a great deal else happening on Thursday. Oh no, there was one pretty big thing. The VAR review aired, and side note, and I've said this before in the channel, if nothing else, I think this is a brilliant broadcasting addition to the Scottish football media landscape. I think it's great that we've got a monthly show that you can just sit down and watch, where you have contentious refereeing decisions played back with the audio of the on-field referees, the VAR officials played over the top, as they were at the time, obviously, and you then get a bit of an explanation. And I find it quite an educational thing as well, in terms of learning a bit about rules and why certain decisions are reached. And you get that from Willie Collum, and Gordon Duncan clearly is a very good host. So no matter what you actually think of certain individual decisions, or generally whether they should be doing this thing or not, I think at the very least it's quite a good programme. Like, maybe it's a sad indictment on the state of my social life here, but I genuinely quite look forward to this coming out every month and sitting and watching all the decisions and getting the explanation and hearing how officials talk to each other. I just find all that stuff absolutely fascinating. They should just find a way to have that as the commentary option for any game on TV, rather than listening to Ian Crocker. Have it so you can just listen to the VAR officials and the official, get them mic'd up, just go the whole hog and make Scottish football a bit of a trailblazer in that way. But I think it's great in terms of the The contentious issue from Sunday, now this isn't a surprise to hear because we heard it earlier in the week. Willie Collum says it should have been a penalty to Rangers. I said earlier in the week that I was surprised on Sunday that it wasn't picked up by VAR. Now, just looking at the incident, and I think this is something Colin pointed out as well, that when you listen to the VAR officials and look at the pictures, I think they just look at Tierney's body being outside the box and think that's why it's not a penalty. When in reality, the rules are that if the shirt tug takes place on the line, then it should be a penalty. But I reckon they're not looking at the shirt tug specifically. They're looking at his legs and where he's positioned. And he is outside the box, or 90% of his body is outside the box. So, yeah, Willie Collum says a penalty should be given. I don't particularly care, to be honest, because as I say, we've won the trophy. These mistakes happen all of the time. We've been in the end of some pretty horrendous ones in recent years that I don't remember the same outcry over, if I'm totally honest. I mean, I thought Rangers got a really controversial penalty in the last derby at Ibrox last season, the Fabio Silva one, and it doesn't seem like there was quite the same outcry as this, to be honest. Maybe I'm misremembering. I mean, even just in that VAR review video yesterday, there was literally 6 or 7 other controversial incidents. So it's not like Rangers are unique here, or Rangers are being persecuted here. So I think we should all remember that. A lot of nonsense coming from them. Accept the defeat, lads. We're winners, you're not. But I did enjoy that video. Neil Lennon reckons they should move on from it as well. We'll get to that. He says Willie has fronted it up, come out and said it's unacceptable, and I agree with him. So it has to be better. It's all right having the Monday morning quarterback routine, don't know what that is, and calling these things out in hindsight, but they should be getting it right on the day. We were talking off air. If Willie is the head of referees, then for me, should he not be there? For a big game especially, Willie or somebody of a senior standard in the referee association, they will have to move on. They put in a great performance. They have closed the gap. There will be regrets about it. It's done now, and you have to use that as motivation. So Neil Lennon says Rangers have to and should move on. Not sure about his comment on the gap being closed. It seems like just a bit of an obsession. People saying, is there a gap? Like, for me, it doesn't really matter how much of a gap there is. It's about who wins the trophies, and Celtic are still winning like 90%, if not more, of the main trophies in Scottish football. So I don't really care how much of a gap there is or isn't. It's about how much you win, and we win virtually everything. But yeah, I'm sure Rangers will definitely take Neil Lennon's advice and move on from this. They certainly won't be mentioning this incident 1,000 times in the lead up to the next derby, will they? Anyway, as a channel, drawing the line now, we're not discussing anything like that again. We'll discuss Celtic's trophy win and us going for a treble, etc. But in terms of that game, that's it. We're moving on now, and the team are back on Sunday at Tannadice. It's a tough game. Dundee United going well this season, 5th in the league on their return to the Premiership. As I mentioned yesterday, it's been a while since we've gone to Tannadice or just played them in general. January 2023 it was. That was like a late Sunday game. Aaron Moy, I just remember him being fabulous. There's that word again. Excellent that night at Tannadice. Game prior to that was our 9-0 win. Game prior to that was the one when we clinched the league and I get shouted at. So yeah, it's rarely dull at Tannadice. In terms of our team, I'm expecting a few changes. This is what I'm going with. Obviously we'll hear more from the manager later today. So I'm going for Kasper Schmeichel in goals. Back four, I think Anthony Ralston might start, given that Alistair Johnson has been suffering with that hip injury since Zagreb. Going Alex Valle at left back. CCV Trusty continue at centre back. Midfield, yeah, pretty strong. McGregor, Bernardo. I know there'll be a bit of chat about Luke McCowan. He's back available for this weekend, of course. Back at the home of his former rivals. He'll obviously get an interesting reception. I've got him coming off the bench. I would probably start Luke McCowan. In fact, yeah, I would. I just think Brendan Rodgers might go with Rio Hatate. It is worth remembering the players have had like a week off since the cup final. which is unusual for this time of the season. So I don't think there's a need to make too many changes. Front three, Nicholas Kuhn on the right, Daizen Maeda on the left. And I'm going Adam Ida through the middle. I think Ida will start. He's well suited to these kind of games, I think. And I think he's playing better than Kyogo at the moment. And yeah, we've got Motherwell on Boxing Day, St Johnstone after that, and then the derby. So I'm pretty sure Brendan Rodgers will have an idea of his team for all of these games. But this is probably, other than the derby, this is probably the kind of toughest one. I think it's going to be a real tough game for us, and it might be a bit of a battle for the team to go and win this game. I'm not sure what the weather's like. John continually tells me that Dundee's the sunniest city in Scotland, so we'll put that to the test on Sunday afternoon. Officials wise, referees David Dickinson, assistants Callum Spence and Gordon McCabe. VAR is Gavin Duncan, and assistant VAR is Andrew McWilliam. And it's a 12 p.m. kickoff on Sunday, so a nice early one, decent time for me as well. Yeah, I think the performance level, we could do with it improving a little bit. Maybe that's unrealistic given that we're in the depths of December and the Scottish winter. And it is all about winning at this stage, and especially looking at this run where if you can win your next 4 games or even win your next 3 and then avoid defeat at Ibrox, you're looking so good to win 4 in a row. That's really what it's about. It's the results. But it would be nice to just get a little bit of momentum ahead of Ibrox, which is going to be a really tough game. As I say, I think Sunday could be a real challenge for us. They're going to be up for it. I mean, I don't always think Tannadice, unless they're in an absolutely terrible place like they were when we beat them 9-0, I always think Tannadice is a bit of a battle. Good atmosphere there, tough team to play against, tough place to go, and they're clearly having a good season under Jim Goodwin. So I think it's going to be a challenge for us, but clearly, if we turn up and play our stuff and really move the ball quickly, I think that's a big thing for me, because that's not been happening as much. We've not looked quite as dangerous, I think, going forward, and I'd be interested to see if Adam Ida makes a bit of a difference to that, getting his first start in one of these away league games for a wee while. So generally feeling all right. I think we'll win the game, but I think it's going to be a tough match. I will return after the game, and because it's an early kickoff, it will be later in the afternoon on Sunday. I'll be back to look back and things. So have a good weekend up until that point, and I'll chat to you afterwards.